Hey everybody, so today I want to talk about um, how supply and demand and support and resistance work together. Okay, how supply and demand and support and resistance work together. So I have a few bullet points that I want to say to give you some things that you can think about as we begin to look at this video. First thing, supply and resistance are on the same team. I mean support, forgive me. I meant to say, yes, supply and resistance are on the same team. And then demand and support are on the same team. All right. Before supply reaches the previous level of demand, it will reach the previous level of support. Before demand reaches the previous level of supply, it will reach the previous level of resistance. All right. These moves create the M's and W's we depend on to take our trades. Supply and demand create support and resistance. All right, so let's go back to the first bullet point. Supply and resistance are on the same team. Why would I say that? Supply and resistance are on the same team. All right. Supply moves down, strong moves to the downside. All right. Resistance is what is created after supply breaks previous levels of support and they turn them into resistance. All right, so this move right here, you have this level of support. Right? Supply comes in with this nice move to the downside. All right? Once supply comes in, I'm actually recording, please don't be rude. Tell her to give me a second. All right, so this one move broke two levels of support and turned both of these levels into resistance. All right. Now, as I said before, when it comes to demand, so this move right here is demand. Demand is when price goes up. Before demand reaches previous levels of supply, right? Which would be this one or even this one, right? Before demand can reach previous levels of supply, it will reach the previous level of resistance. All right, so you got, which is the previous level of resistance? This one or this one? All right, it will be this one. This is the most recent level that was broken. All right, as you can see, price comes up to this level of resistance and continues to sell. Okay, that's why I say supply and resistance are on the same team, because ultimately they end up having you go into the same direction of downward. All right. Now, on the flip side of demand, okay, before demand and support are on the same team. All right. Demand and support are on the same team. So let's go and see if we can find some demand situations here. All right. So this will have to be one here. All right. Demand is when price goes up. Okay. So first, before demand reaches previous levels of supply, it will reach the previous level of resistance. All right, so this is demand. So this is a previous level of supply here, right? This is the previous level of supply, and then ultimately this is the most where the supply move started. Okay, now before demand reaches the previous level of supply, it will reach the previous level of resistance. The most previous resistance is here. Okay, as you can see. All right, you have another one right here. All right, resistance is where supply broke through previous levels of support and continue to drop. All right, so before demand, which is this move, reaches this high, it must reach these previous levels of resistance. All right, so as you can see, price went through here, came back, and continued up. All right, now when it came back, it created support. Support in demand. It's either equal levels or most commonly will be higher lows. Support is higher lows, right? Resistance is lower highs. I'll write that down for my sake. Support produces higher lows, and resistance produces lower highs. Okay, so we have to have the right terminology to understand what we are looking for and to be able to take the right trade, right? So we need to know how supply and demand, support and resistance work together. They work together. All right, you cannot have support without demand, and you cannot have resistance. You cannot have resistance without supply. Supply pushes price down, support pushes price up. All right, the more support you have, the more likely it is for price to go up. The more resistance you have, the more likely it is for price to go down. All right, so and even when it comes to taking trades as such, when you're not sure whether it's going to continue to go up or not, one thing I talked about in my previous video is that as long as the previous supply levels are not broken, which in this case, let me make it cleaner for you guys to see. Get rid of all these. All right, so you have supply. You have supply here, and then you have, I think, supply here. All right. So, as long as these previous levels are not broken, then supply is still on offense. Right now, the first level of supply can be broken, but as long as these previous levels of supply are not broken, then supply is still on offense. But and this is where the details come. You cannot expect supply to take over until after demand has had the opportunity to retest at least the previous levels of this would be previous levels of support turn into resistance. When supply breaks a level of support, that support is no longer support, it becomes an area of resistance. Okay, so you shouldn't be trying to sell. At least I would say you shouldn't even be looking for a sell until at least price, in this case, until price comes back up to here. All right, now if it continues to drop, then you'll figure out another entry. All right, but you shouldn't even be getting in early of a trade until price comes to at least to this level. If price hasn't come to this level, which as you can see, it did give you some pips, right? It gave you 100 plus pips just by realizing and waiting until demand pushed back to a level prior to it going to the level of supply. Before it can go to supply, it has to go back to this level of support turned into resistance. All right, support on the left side of a supply move will always be a level of resistance on the right side of that move. All right, and vice versa. I'll find an area where I can speak about demand or whatever. Okay, but in this case, you should at least be getting in here. But if you got in here and took that sell at least to this support, you could have sold from resistance to this previous level of support and made 100 pips just by understanding how they work in tandem together. Okay, now it pushes up to this level of resistance. Okay, and like I said, it's going to always come back at least to this level. So if you got in here, you could have put your stop loss. If you want to have a tight stop, you could have put your stop loss at this level of support turned into resistance. You could have got in here, put the stop loss here. It should probably been 100 pips or whatever. But that 100 pip stop is better than having it here. That's better than having a 200 pip stop ultimately for it to continue down. All right, so the whole gist of it is, how do support and resistance work together with supply and demand? So this is what I'm giving you guys here. All right, so now I want to take a look at the flip side. I'm going to look at an uptrend and discuss the very opposite of what we talked about here. All right, so we're going to talk about support. So I'm demand. We have a demand move here, right? We got a demand move here. It comes back down. Before, this is the demand move. Price pushed up. Before this supply comes back to even come close to this demand area, it must come back to the previous level of resistance turning to support. Now, most people would say, well, this is the level, this is the most recent. No, this is the most recent. And as you can see, price came right back to that area. Price came right back to that area. Did you wash up? Mm-hmm. Okay, you put lotion on? Mm-hmm. Okay, but go do that. You know you gotta do that. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, please not. No. I'll do it when I come home.
No, Brie. So no,
I always put it on my eczema spots though.
No, everywhere. Go ahead. And your feet need to be done. So this demand supply before supply reaches previous levels of demand, it will reach the previous level of support. Now this level of support is resistance turned into support. Resistance on the left side of demand turns into support on the right side of that same demand move. I'll say it again. Resistance on the left side of a demand move turns into support on the right side of that same move. Okay? Need this to be straight. Straight as it's gonna get. Alright, so had you just understand, I know I'm getting it as it's revealed to me. Just waiting until it came down here would have saved you about 100 pip of drawdown. Right? Now, you got it? Demand goes up, comes back into a resistance turns to support. You could have got in here for the buy, put your stops here, and at least got in here. Now price obviously pushed up higher, right? It's down. In this case, you don't look for, as I talked about it before, you don't look for counter trend trades to give you massive moves into the overall trend. Now sometimes you will have them, but this is not the norm. The norm is for price to go up, right? If they ever do it like this, you still have to be mindful of the rule. All right, so you got demand here, price pushed up higher than that. This becomes, this resistance level turns into support on the side. Did price come back to here? No. All right, so we're not gonna worry about that. There's no reason for you to sell. We're in an uptrend, all right? So you got this, you had some supply here. It pushes up. This becomes a level of support. Once a supply is broken, it becomes a level of support in an uptrend. Once demand is broken, once a level of demand has been broken, it becomes resistance in a downtrend. All right, so we're in an uptrend. So price breaks it, comes back to it, it continues up. Right, nothing is saying sell. Had a little ranging here, the price still ended up pushing up. Right, pushed up. This resistance turned to support. Okay, push it up, came back to it. Nothing is saying sell. It's obviously wicking against this area of resistance turning to support. All right, nothing is saying get out. Nothing is saying get out, and it continues to do as such. And so we see the exact opposite of what I discussed over here, is that when you have demand creates support. Demand creates support because it pushes, it ultimately transforms supply and resistance into levels of support. So you have this supply that gave us this move for the entry, right? Now, like I said before, these moves create the M's and W's, right? So this demand move with this supply move created the support that was needed for the second leg to go up and the uptrend. All right, and you'll see it. You see it a lot. So, for example, we had supply here. You had some. It pushed down. It couldn't break this level of support, which is created from demand. Pushed up, and then it ultimately pushed down. Right, but it pushed down into a level that was once resistance that turned into support. It begins to repeat itself over and over again. Supply and demand working, supply and resistance working together with demand and support. And you can find trades within the moves just by understanding how these two work. All right. Now, as I said before, let's look at this one thing, and I'm gonna probably cut this video short because got to go make some runs with family. But please watch this video over and over again to get the wisdom and to get the understanding. So, as I said before, this is a demand move. This demand move, before it can reach the previous level of supply, which where it came from, it must reach the previous level of support turn into resistance, which is this. It got to come here first. All right. So as you can see, you shouldn't even be trying to counter trend trade until it comes to this level. Anything earlier than this level, you're asking to be stopped out. All right. So it came here, gave you a quick little 50 pips, enough pips to be satisfied. Now there are instances where price will come here, as you can see, and then continue to push up higher to the level of supply where it came from. But there are also instances where price will come here and continue to drop. Right. Either way it go, you can get in here, or if you want to wait until see if price comes back to the previous level of support, you can get in here. Don't do that. You can put my eye out.
Okay.
Either way it go, both trades work. You can get at least 50 pips here, probably to 100 pips, especially on gold. But if you got in here before price comes to the previous level of demand, it will touch the previous level of support, turn into resistance, and it does that. It didn't give you much. It didn't give you much of a play, but it touched it. It touched it before it continued. All right. That pullback gave you 50, 70 pips. So just want to reiterate that, right? Before say it again, supply and resistance. How does supply and demand and support and resistance work together? Supply and resistance are on the same team. They're on the team of the sellers. They're on the sellers. Anything down, they're the bears, right? They're on the bears. I like to keep it in sports because it makes it easier for us to understand. Demand and support are on the same team. They're on the bulls. They're anything going up, you're going to see demand and support. Before supply reaches the previous level of demand, it will reach the previous level of support. Before demand reaches the previous level of supply, it will reach the previous level of resistance. These moves create the M's and W's we depend on to take our trades. Supply and demand create support and resistance. Support produces the higher lows and resistance produces lower highs. All right. Now they score the way. Okay, one more thing before I let this movie go. Before I cut this video short, the way they score is this: they go back and forth to previous levels. Right. The first level of demand, the closest level of demand will always be taken over by supply, and the closest level of supply will always be taken over by demand when these moves happen. Now we know that from the previous video that in an uptrend, the bulls have a higher probability. They score more points than the bears. In a downtrend, the bears score more points than the bulls, which means you get more pips. When I talk about points, I'm trying to make it easier for you to understand who's winning and which team you should be trying to be on, which trade you should be trying to take. Right? If it's a downtrend, you should be trying to get you should be trying to focus your trades on sell, your short trades. Right? Supply and resistance should be your best friend. In an uptrend, the bulls are winning. Demand and support should be your best friend. All right. So I just want to give you guys that real quick before we go into to New Year's Eve and all that good stuff going to the New Year, so that you can understand. So that you can understand why things it will definitely get easier. It even works on Bitcoin. You will see it. They all do the same thing, right? They all do the same thing. So I'm in this trade right now just to continue to test my strategy because, like I said before, it's an uptrend. Right? We don't have, as long as levels of demand have not been broken, demand is still on offense. So even with this drawdown, I still look to have some push to the upside. I might not. I don't think I'll let this video lag to see what's going on. But when you get some time, if you watch this video all the way through, just take and see about the end of the day if Bitcoin goes above this number, 88,251. All right, if it goes above there, at least back to this high, it confirms my. If it goes to 89,000 or higher, it definitely confirms my strategy and everything. No, but that's all for today. Like I said, you guys watch this video over and over, and I'm gonna post it to my YouTube channel, and then I'll post it to my Facebook page. My Facebook page is The Mentor. You'll see the words The Mentor in black and white. It's free. If for those who want more help with understanding, please feel free to join my Facebook page. It's free, like I said before. And yeah, y'all have a good day.
Bye. Subscribe.
Okay, let's get everybody here. What's going on?
Subscribe to his channel. Bye, guys. Thanks a lot. I'm his daughter.
All right, I gotta go wash up.